when I call somebody, I'm not calling them to sell them something. I'm calling to them to begin a relationship, because you can't sell anybody anything until you have a relationship with them.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. In today's episode, we have Ted Heiman, who is the CEO and cybersecurity specialist at CISO Guru. With over 25 years of experience in the cybersecurity industry, Ted has become a leading expert in resolving complex cybersecurity challenges for large enterprises. He is recognized for his innovative strategies and visionary leadership, which has helped numerous organizations enhance their security posture in an increasingly digital world, which is why we're excited to have him on the show. Ted, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Devon. Happy to be here.
The pleasure's all mine. I'm really excited to get into this. You have a lot of experience that I'm eager to unpack here. But before we jump into the whole thing, let's start with just a couple of minutes on your background, who you are, where you came from, and how you landed as the CEO at CISO Guru.
Yeah, so I started my career kind of very early on in the computer security or cybersecurity space. So I was selling firewalls when people started to want to hook their local area networks to the internet, and they needed a firewall to secure that single connection, which was essentially the drawbridge or the route to get from the local area network out to the external world and to the internet. And I have been working with CISOs, primarily of Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 type companies, and helping them to solve challenges and problems that they have, and often to deploy what is leading edge and oftentimes bleeding edge technology. And throughout my 25 plus year, travels, I've worked for many different companies, startups, very small startups to very large organizations like Oracle, Bay Networks, which I guess they're Nortel Networks, and over that time, I've just been so eager to learn and consume just everything I could about security, and so I look at it like, I'm looking back over my career for 25 years and the trajectory of my career and how I ended up at one company versus the other. And what I've realized is I've basically done the equivalent of getting 5 doctorates in security in the last 25 years. And so with a strong engineering background, I was able to pick the technology up very quickly and figure out and understand not what they were selling, but how what they were selling solved a problem for someone, so that you could actually then provide the solution to solve that problem. And so that's the journey and path that I've been on. And it's been a very, very interesting journey.
So how long has CISO Guru been around?
I started CISO Guru a little over 3 years ago.
Okay.
And it started out stupid. It was Ted Heiman Consulting, because that was easy and dumb. I was doing some 1099 work for a few different companies, and realized that, that there was more I could do there. And as I started to work more and more on my business, I started to get really excited about the opportunity to go out on my own and do something that I've never done before. But it's also really scary, right? I mean, you've worked for all these companies. You've always had a cush job, you had to work hard, but the money was good. You had health benefits, all that stuff taken care of for you. And you didn't really have to think about it. And now, after deciding to take that leap, which was, that was a soul searching, question. Can I really do this? Am I up to it? Do I, can I really deliver on the promise of what I'm offering? and really help people succeed, and specifically help CISOs succeed at what is such a hard problem today, which is securing these networks that are, on-prem, in the cloud, hybrid networks. And the security component has gotten so complex that it really takes somebody who understands all the aspects of security to really approach trying to help that enterprise or organization achieve what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And so in that first year of kind of building the company, I imagine there is a necessity for you to take on all, if not many, of the roles in operating the business. Whether it's finding and acquiring customers or fulfilling on the services and promises that you made during that whole sales process. Can you explore a little bit about how that experience was for you in the very early days of the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So this isn't the first company that I've owned.
Okay.
I owned the largest home automation company and security company in Hawaii. And it was called IQ Design, and I built it up. I had about 25 employees, was working with some of the wealthiest people in the world, and my revenues were, 4 to 5 million. And I was doing real good. But I learned some things over that time about doing business and about the things that I like and the things that I don't like about doing business. And so, always love being out in front of the customer, always love, promoting and marketing the organization, always love spreading the word and making sure my clients were absolutely satisfied. So I knew that they would be good references in the future. But I also learned that there were some things I really didn't like about being a business owner. And that was things like taxes and accounting and HR and all that stuff that's very necessary, but takes away your time and efforts from focusing on sales and actually generating revenue. And so there's other jobs that you have to do that don't necessarily generate revenue, or at least not immediately generate revenue. As all those pieces come together and things start to culminate, you can, as you start to generate revenue, then you can start to hand that stuff off to others. And so I do have a small administrative staff. It's not fancy, it's not big, but they can take care of a lot of the things that I don't have time, or not that I don't have time to do, but that they can do what they're good at, and I can do what I'm good at, which is going out and supporting and helping CISOs achieve their goals. And that's what fulfills me. That's what drives me. That's what makes me get up every single day, is to say, okay, what am I working on today? And what problem are we solving? And how do we get there working together as a team and a partnership? And so taking on CISO Guru was once again a soul searching effort, because when I sold my business in Hawaii and came back to the mainland, I went right back to working for other companies and stuff. So the last 3 years have been a lot of soul searching, doing a bunch of 1099 contracting to bring in revenue and whatnot, but then also starting to build the business. I've started a podcast called the CISO Guru podcast. I've been interviewed on dozens of podcasts. So I love this stuff. I love getting out in front of the customer. I want them to, I want to show my brand. I want to be out there, and I want to know that there are people out there that have a level of knowledge and experience that they can actually rely on and trust. Because I don't come empty-handed looking for them to give me something. I come with a wealth of knowledge. I call it intellectual capital. Over 25 years of intellectual capital that I want to share with you. and let you leverage and mine that capital to whatever benefit it can be, because I've done so much in my career and had so many different opportunities to work with some of the largest companies in the world, the Department of Defense, every three-letter acronym agency you can think of. And so over that time, I've just learned and absorbed and now I feel like it's time for me to give back and to share that knowledge and experience and to not be locked into selling one organization's product. That was always one of the things I struggled with was, I would get on the phone with the CISO, but if he didn't have a need for the specific solution that the company I was working for was selling, I couldn't help him. So all I could say is, hey, appreciate your time. I'd love to, chat with you in the future. If something like this comes up, you have a need, but they don't all have it. But what I found from my consulting business is they all need consulting, every single one of them. And part of that is because people expect CISOs to know everything about security, right? They're the guy in the company, the go-to guy in the company who everyone from the CEO to operations to marketing goes to and says, we need to secure this. We need to secure that. Tell us how to do it. And it's really an unfair expectation that a CISO knows everything about every technology that's out there and just knows how to deploy it and has it all just right in his back pocket. And so I think that, and I think it's hard for CISOs too, because, we all have egos, right? And we want to be that go-to person. We want to be that person who's the expert and that everybody can come to, and we've got the answer right there. But the reality isn't so. The reality is we all have things to learn. And even after 25 years in the industry, I am learning new things about security every single day. And so, the passion of my business is that. The other stuff, I'm trying to, as I generate more and more revenue, hand that off to people who are good at doing that stuff, like doing that stuff, and allow me to focus on the stuff that I really love.
Right. There's something to be said about the idea of, finding something that you're interested in, learning everything that you can, spending, as you have, a couple of decades just being really immersed in this thing that gives you, that satisfies your curiosities and holds and maintains your interest, to then become the expert on all of the topics that kind of surround that thing. And then now you have this practical utility. So from the sounds of it, like what I'm picking up on is the early stages were, hey, let me just help whoever I can. And then once you kind of get into the swing of things, you start now refining, who actually needs what I'm really good at. How can I serve these people in a way that's going to be useful to them and beneficial to the work that they're doing? And so as you continue down that process, I wonder what sorts of challenges have presented themselves for the stage that you're at now in terms of how you're growing your business. Because as you mentioned, there's certain things that you like doing versus, certain things that other people like doing. And there's a synergy that you want to create in your team that allows those people to live their purpose so that you can live yours. Could you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So most of my career, I've worked with very, very large companies, and these are household name companies like Safeway and Wells Fargo, Visa, Tesla, Uber, LinkedIn, Facebook, Salesforce. These are the names that at least everybody in the industry recognizes. I think most people recognize these companies, and the beauty of that was that the company was set up to do business with these large enterprises and had in place the things that were necessary to work with these large enterprises. And that's things like a legal team, that was there to deal with any contracting or any type of issues related to, putting together the agreements that we needed to have. things like insurance, things like, having third-party risk management studies studies and information that I could provide to them about my organization, because third-party risk is such a big deal right now. And so they throw at you all these guides, and I'm like, well, I'm a one-man show. All the security I have is on my laptop right there. Everything's encrypted. I know where all the passwords are, and they're all secured in encrypted files. And so, that's the extent of the security they have right now. I got a firewall that sits at the head of my network, and that's it. And so what I found is that for me as a small business, it's a lot harder to do business with those enterprises that I've historically worked with. And it's made it hard for those CISOs that want to work with me, but because I'm not there yet from the ability to truly serve a large enterprise customer, I had to look at my business a little bit differently and say, okay, I've got all these fantastic relationships with CISOs in excellent companies, and so I leverage those every day. And even if I'm not able to engage or contract with them, I still offer my services, my consulting, my help. Give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm here. We've worked together before, and I'll always support you in what you do. And my goal was to build my business to that point where I am able to re-engage with those household name companies. And that's just a reality of where my business is right now. I jumped off the ledge. I didn't climb a ladder with a pot of gold. I jumped off the ledge and took the plunge,
right?
Took that risk and went, wow, okay. Now I have to rethink things a little bit. This is my company now. What do I want to do? What are my expectations? And like any company, I've got to generate revenue, or it's not a company. It's just a hobby. And
right.
So I've had to really rethink my sales strategies and rethink this idea of my ideal customer profile. What would the ideal customer profile look like if it's not those big Fortune enterprises? Who can I bring value to, and where is that need? And what I came to understand is that there is a huge mid-market out there that is almost entirely untapped. The security industry, if you're not a Fortune 5,000 company, they've completely ignored you. Matter of fact, if you're not even a Fortune 1,000 company, they've probably pretty much ignored you, because they've always looked to these enterprises as the organizations that had the deep pockets and that could afford these security solutions and had a need for the security solutions. And that's how the industry has evolved. It's just how we got here. But what I've come to understand is that the mid-market has a lot of the same security concerns, the same issues, the same problems they're trying to solve as the large enterprises, but they have less resources, they have less money, and they're really scared about what could possibly happen to them, because they know that they're not prepared for a ransomware attack or a nation state actor or some kind of major cyber breach. And they know that if something like that happened, it would have a tremendous impact on the company and their brand and all of these things. And so what I found is that sometimes it's a little bit easier to work with the mid-market than working with the really big guys, because everybody's targeting the big guys. And so, if you're a small fish in a giant pond, you're not going to get a lot of attention from these, large CISOs, the large enterprises and these CISOs, unless you've got a relationship with them, previous relationship with them anyways. But what I'm finding with mid-market companies, and I define a mid-market company as somebody that's between 100 million and 500 million in revenue. Okay, they're through their first couple rounds of funding. They've gotten some significant investments. They're starting to expand the organization. They're understanding that if they want to do business with enterprises, that they've got to have certain things in place. If you're going to be, a SaaS vendor, you've got to have SOC 2. That's all there is to it. You don't have it, you're not in the running. It's a requirement, right? And so that mid-market I found is a very interesting market to approach because they're starving for information. They're starving for help. And although they don't have as much money, they're also not as complicated to do business with. The contracting part of it is much simpler. The insurance and all that other stuff is much simpler because they don't have as much to risk. I mean, Wells Fargo Bank, something goes wrong, their name's in the paper, it's not a happy day, right? So, but these smaller companies, a lot of them are just sitting out there and just hoping, praying, and assuming that they won't be targeted. And they know it's only a matter of time, but they don't know what to do or even where to start. Like, they're just like, this is such a big problem. How do I start? And that's where I can come in and use that intellectual capital once again and say to them, look, let's sit down and talk about this for a little while. Let's talk about where are your critical assets? How are they being managed? Where are the keys to the kingdom and your intellectual property? And how can we make sure those assets are secured in such a way that if somebody were to breach your network, it would be very, very difficult to gain access to the things that are core to your business. And so, yeah, definitely. I mean, I had to rethink my strategy, and now I'm targeting in the mid-market because that's where I'm finding a lot of success.
You're the second person inside of a week to point at the absence of solutions for the mid-market. And I wonder how much of that is a trend that has been kind of overlooked for the short period of time that everybody was kind of aiming at the top. There's a whole group of people, a blue ocean as it seems, who are unaware of the problem, unaware of solutions that exist, and who are being preyed upon and victimized because of that lack of knowledge. And so it poses a lot of challenges to people in your position with a business like yours. How do you reach them? How do you teach them something or provide them some value or show them that what you have is what they need? And then, how do you systemize that process of bringing them on board? I wonder if to kind of wrap things up here, because we're coming to the end of our time together, maybe if we could look into the future here and look at what are some of the strategies that you're looking to deploy, and how are you looking to measure whether or not those are going to be successful in terms of now growing your business if you do decide to kind of aim at that middle market?
Yeah. So, I mean, the sales process doesn't change. The sales process is very, very much the same. The difference is there's less decision makers that are part of the whole process of bringing on board a solution or coming on board as a consultant. The strategies for me also haven't changed much. I really rely on referrals a lot. I think that we've gotten in a place where marketing departments have decided that the best way to do business is to have their team of BDRs that's going to send out as many LinkedIn requests, as many emails, make as many phone calls as they can in a day. And that just to cast that really large net and say, we're going after it all. And they're just spamming these CISOs and these decision makers with so much information, email, LinkedIn requests, all these things that they've caused these people and these decision makers to isolate themselves from sales. And so what I've found is that in the mid-market, that's not true. And so it's easier to get to the decision maker because there's not so many barriers and they haven't isolated themselves because they are looking for a solution. And so getting to people is easier. And get, when I call somebody, I'm not calling them to sell them something. I'm calling to them to begin a relationship, because you can't sell anybody anything until you have a relationship with them. And so the sales strategies that are out there now, and a lot of companies are using, especially these small security startups that are just dying to get the attention of these really large companies. And there's so many of them that it's so difficult to differentiate yourself. And they're just doing this cast the wide net thing. And I think it's really hurting them. It's really, really hurting them. Whereas me, it's all about referrals. What can I do for you? I'm not asking a CISO. I don't get on LinkedIn and send them a message and then say, I offer all these services. Pick one, call me. I mean, come on. I get on the phone and say, can I get 15 minutes of your time to find out what's important for you this year to accomplish, so I can understand what the challenges that you're looking at look like, and even see if there's an opportunity for us to work together and for me to help you. Because there may be and there may not be. But I will tell you that I myself and almost everybody that I know, including these CISOs at these very large companies, will give you 15 minutes. Don't ask them for an hour. Don't ask them for a half hour. Let's just start with 15 minutes and see if we can jive a little bit. Because before you can do business with them, you got to get to know them. And so you need to have a conversation with them about who you are, who they are, what's important to them, what you're trying to do, before you can ever have a discussion about whether you're going to do business together. And I think that's a very different approach than what most companies are doing today. And the thing is that, your customers are your best referrals. They're the best way for you to meet these other people and these other organizations. So it's really critical for these companies that are trying to do that, they're so busy spending so much money on marketing that they should be spending on product development to make sure that at the point they have the opportunity to work with somebody, that they've got a product that really does everything that that customer needs and competes very well in the marketplace that they're in. And so, I think that, to come back around to it, the sales process hasn't really changed, but the approach has changed. And I think that that's the paradigm shift that I'm looking at with my business.
Yeah, the idea of coming from, the treating the shareholders, right? Everything that you do is related to getting them their money as fast as possible. And so that means that we're coming to market with the minimum viable product, and there's all these bugs and holes, and that affects the first impressions and the reputation and the way people talk about your business. And so having the insight that you do, Ted, to be able to know, like, hey, listen, sales is sales, but we're not doing that anymore. We're into a position now where relationships have become more important than they ever have, as we get more and more connected in this kind of global economy that we're transitioning into. That's very insightful. Ted, you've been very generous with your time and your wisdom, and for that, I'm very grateful. To kind of wrap things up here, I wonder if there was a piece of advice that you could offer others as it relates to refining their sales and marketing and building their business. What would that advice be?
Educate yourself about your customer before you try and reach out to them. It's not about casting a wide net. I'd rather have 5 really good phone calls in a day than send out 100 emails or LinkedIn requests or whatever. I would way rather have 5 quality conversations. And so I'm going to spend that time, instead of spamming the world, I'm going to spend that time educating myself on what that organization is doing, who the leadership is, what's important to them. Who is the CTO? Who is the CIO? Who is the CISO? And where do they fit in the organization? And what are the organization's priorities? If you look at quarterly reports and annual reports now, security is part of that. It's a big piece of that because poor security could impact business dramatically. I mean, let's look at just what happened with CrowdStrike and Microsoft. These are two of the biggest companies in the industry. Microsoft is one of the biggest companies in the world. CrowdStrike is one of the largest security companies in the industry. And we just saw what just a little mistake can do to the entire world, not just the United States, not just a few companies across the entire world. And so I think that it's really important that if you take the time to come to them and demonstrate that you have some knowledge about their organization, that you understand the products that they sell, and you understand what their priorities are as a company, just think how impressed that person will be when you get on the phone and you can speak that back to them, the exact words that they're putting in their report. So you're not just sitting there, just throwing a sales pitch at them, but you're saying, look, I reviewed your annual report and I noticed that the company has decided that you should report directly to the board of directors. And I find that very interesting. Would you be interesting to chat about that? And now, I'm not trying to sell them anything, right? I didn't talk about me or my product or anything in that. But guess what? The likelihood of that guy talking to me because I'm interested about how he's succeeding and how he's getting this opportunity to be, part of the board and presenting to the board. Think about that. You're reversing this whole thing from, I've got all these bells and whistles, all these features and benefits. We're the greatest company in the world. Why aren't you buying my stuff? Well, because you haven't demonstrated a valid business reason for me to even get on the phone with you. You haven't understood that I've already spent $2 million last year deploying your competitors' technology, and you're trying to sell to me when I'm still trying to deploy what I bought. I mean, you gotta approach this with a certain amount of intelligence and intellect. And I think that that's what's missing today is that it's quantity over quality, and it doesn't work. And everybody's doing the same thing. I don't know who thought that this was the way that you should sell. It is never the way that I have sold in my entire life. And when I was put in a position not long ago working for a company that had that exact sales model, I was so uncomfortable with it that I just was like, this is not right. This is not how we do it. And so what I would say is, as a company, think about what is your ideal customer profile? Who are the companies that you've been successful in the past? And what other companies look like those companies? Because then might have the same situation and challenges those companies. So understanding your ideal customer criteria and really knowing where you fit into the market, and then doing your homework and making sure that when you do approach the decision maker, or maybe somebody that works for the decision maker, because I've found now lately the decision makers have isolated themselves. So now I'm going to call maybe the chief security officer or even just the director of security, somebody that sits below the CISO, and spend a few minutes with him. And maybe we can have a discussion about some of the challenges that he's facing. And then if he feels like I can bring value to the organization, I guarantee that guy will introduce you to the decision maker. And so maybe it's not always that we're always targeting that one C-level guy, but instead we're looking at the organization holistically and understand that these guys have teams that they rely on and trust to do a lot of the work, and they're valuable in the sales process and often involved in this decision-making process. And so there's opportunity there as well.
Yeah, this whole just throw cast a wide net, as you said, to reach as many people as possible. The problem with that is that nobody in that wide net of people feels like you've identified them in that messaging. So how are they to raise their hand and go, hey, listen, actually, that's a problem I have. So that clarity on getting them, sorry, on understanding who you're serving arms you with the necessary information tools and what you need to actually go out there and reach them in a more impactful way. And I'm a huge subscriber to that belief of the personal relationships and actually paying attention, listening, doing the best that you can to serve, even if at the end of the day you're not the one getting the paycheck. So it's very, very sound advice, Ted. To kind of wrap things up here, if somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further or perhaps work with you in the future, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. So you can find me at CISO Guru, and that's www.ciso.guru. And there's a link right on my website if you want to chat. I'll give anybody an hour of time. I'm here to help. And so reach out to me if you have a question, there's something you're struggling with, you got something, a major deployment coming up, and you've got some concerns about whether you have the knowledge and experience to really pull off that deployment. And if there's something that I can do to bring value to you and to help you or to connect you with somebody else or a partner or another vendor in the industry that can help you with that problem, that's what I'm here to do. I'm a consultant, and it's my job to help you succeed. And that's what CISO Guru is entirely about. It's not about me. It's not about me at all. It's about helping CISOs succeed. And that means doing whatever that is, from project management to vendor assessments to penetration testing to research. I have done all of this. And so I can bring it to the table and say, let me fill those gaps for you. Let me be that person who takes some of the load off so you can go home at 4 p.m. on Friday and be with your family this weekend and know that there's somebody that you trust that's going to make sure that the things that you need to get done are getting done. And that's my job, is to make a CISO's job easier, to give him more resources, more knowledge, more just value from the perspective of not what you can do for me or what you can buy for me, but how can I help you succeed? And if I come to the table with that intent, how can I help you succeed? These guys, people do business with people they like. You got to be likable. You got to be, you got to make friends with these guys. You got to build a relationship at some level. There's got to be a personal connection there. And then only then have you given me a valid business opportunity to spend time with you.
Your authenticity emanates through the words that you share and the message and the way that you conduct yourself. And I think it's very clear. We'll make sure that when this episode is published, all the ways to get in touch with you, Ted, are going to be linked in the show notes. That's this has been a very interesting conversation, and there's a lot of really valuable insight that you've shared. And so on behalf of everyone who's watching and listening, thank you for being a part of this. On that note, if you are looking to get in touch with me and my team for any reason, anybody that's listening and watching this, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode, and I will see you in the next.